Join us on a journey across the Platte Prairie,
where the land is as
vast as the sky,
and the stories are as rich
as the soil.
Meet Emily Dalzell. Emily has traveled the world, finding her family's tartan in Scotland, doing a photo shoot in Paris as a luggage model, and inadvertently vacationing in the Molenbeek district in Belgium, which is known for its terrorist activity. In this episode, Emily shares some of her most memorable and random life experiences, including winning a year-long supply of potato chips from Frito Lay, and how a letter she wrote to the Disney company got her and her family free passes to the park for a week.
You have quite a resume, playing piano on stage in front of a conference, stacking Oreos, modeling in Paris.
Truly are the most important part, clearly, of my third grade.
Yeah, I would like to see your resume.
These random weird things I've done. No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing you going into a job interview. You love your job, so that, just hypothetically, wearing your Dalzell tartan and having
holding
this fantastic resume.
Oh my
How
goodness.
could they not just be enamored with you?
Clearly, the skill sets knows no bounds. I can,
that's
write
the message
Disney
I'm
and there's people far more intrinsically talented than myself. I just have been lucky that I've had all these random opportunities in life, and thankful for the people who have taught me along the way.
I'm curious about your ancestry. What do you know about where your family comes from on your dad and your mom's side?
Yeah, you bet. So my dad is Scottish, largely. Everyone in North Dakota, I think, has a little bit of everything, in their family lineage. But my dad's side is very Scottish, and my mom's side is Norwegian. So my mom's side, they traced it back. There's like these Viking royalty people, so they have this whole very, very developed booklet of all their family history. It's beautifully written and super interesting to read through. Then on my dad's side, if you go back, the name Dalzell, there's the Royal Scots Greys, who were this incredible group of people who helped protect Scotland. One of the folks there helped found that. So it's interesting learning more about your family lineage and where people were in different parts of the world, and how they ended up there and what they did with their life.
Do you know anything about the story of how your dad's ancestors ended up in North Dakota or even in North America?
Yeah. So eventually, there's some Irish background there, some time in Ireland, and the potato famine forced people out, and so they went to Canada and lived in Canada for a number of years, and then eventually moved to the U.S. And my grandfather was a pastor, and so he lived in different parts of the Midwest with his family, so it's interesting. My grandparents would travel around sharing the gospel of people through music, and so it's kind of cool to run into people, especially in smaller churches around the state, who knew my grandfather and my great-grandfather, and I never knew my great-grandfather. So it's interesting that there's people who knew who they were because I had no idea. So just kind of cool to run into people who know your family.
So you said you're a Bismarck native.
I sure am.
What part of town did you grow up in, or was it not town?
I grew up by the Wachter wave pool. So grew up going with the neighborhood friends, walking there in the summertime and getting to go swimming. And I feel like Bismarck is such an interesting community because everybody either knows each other or they're related. They're like, oh, it's my aunt, sister's, brother's cousin, if you talk to anybody in the world about where you're from. But I love Bismarck. It's such a nice community, and it's always nice to travel, but when you come home, it's nice to be home.
Are your parents from here?
No, they met in college in Jamestown. My mom was from Rugby.
What?
I'm
from Rugby.
Yeah, geographical center of North America.
What's her last name?
Himley.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Small world.
We should make shirts. to be able to, share about the different slogans of our state. My parents moved here. My dad was offered a job with is Northwest, but Delta in Seattle, and they were going to move there. And then there was this terrible aviation tragedy where they had to ground all this specific type of plane, and so they pulled that position in Seattle, and then there was a position that opened up in Bismarck. But if there was not that horrific aviation tragedy, we would have been living in Seattle, so I wouldn't be here right now. But
Where did he grow up, your dad?
some different places. So my grandfather was a pastor. So he lived at a few different places, but eventually ended up in Jamestown, North Dakota, where he met my mom at college.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, grew up in Bismarck, and we were talking about how everyone seems to know each other here.
Yeah.
Do you have other relatives in town?
No, I don't. I have quite a few relatives in the Fargo-Moorhead area and parts of Minnesota, but no, just my immediate family in Bismarck. But, I feel like, your friends that you just have kind of known throughout life, I feel like they become your second family. So it'd be kind of weird to move just because you get so used to being able to call your friends up and hang out and it's no big deal, instead of having them live on the other side of the country and having to actually plan out, tickets and things to go see each other.
Right, it's a big production.
It's a production.
Yeah.
Just a process.
Yeah, and oldest friends are just the best because they know you.
They know you so well. All the random things that you go on adventures with, I completely agree with you.
What kind of random adventures come to mind when you think of high school times?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We one time in high school, one of my friends and I, there was a couple other women who they had parents who worked for the airlines as well, and so we had traveled together. So one of the trips that we did was New York for the day, and
For the day?
Yeah. So we just left on the early morning flight, and then we went there and did the double-decker tour bus to all the places, and then we wanted to go to the Statue of Liberty. And we got there, and the guy was like, "No, you can't get on. This ferry's full." It's but sir, we have come all the way from North Dakota. Our family lineage, he came up with this whole story of here we must see the birthplace of our freedom, and so we let us on the ferry. And we got to go see the Statue of Liberty, and then come around and come back, and got on a flight and came home that evening. But it was a fun way to get to go explore because you'd go up in the Times Square stop, and there's this man with a boa constrictor just around his head. And one time we got off on the wrong subway stop, and there was cops everywhere just running after people, and we're walking around what is, I think we're at the wrong stop. And then we had all of our I Love New York hats and t-shirts on. We're we're not here. This is how our life is going to end. But
So I'm hearing you talk about talking your way onto a full ferry, and you mentioned earlier about writing a letter to Disney and getting some feedback and free tickets. Where do you think your influential power comes from, or your ability to influence? This is interesting.
oh my gosh, no, here's the thing, is I don't really have an outcome that I'm hoping for with these things. It's more this deep-seated when I wrote Disney, because they were using these buses to transport people. I thought the Walt Disney Company, Walt was always an innovator. Thinking of ways to do things the very best, the most efficiently, the most exciting and fun way. And it just didn't feel terribly innovative, using buses to transport people. And it just seems like something that could be improved upon. And I feel you need to use any feedback that you have to make things better for people, after you. So even if I never go back to Disney parks, I think that they should implement different ways to transport people, because it's going to make other people's experience better, even if I personally don't benefit from it. And so I just thought I should write Disney and tell them that. So I wrote Disney Company. I said, it's very disappointing, and I really don't think Walt would approve what you're doing with the buses transporting people. And then the good folks at Disney wrote back, and they said, we'll give your whole extended family, everyone in this family reunion, these passes to every single park for a week. And bless their hearts, that they're taking feedback seriously. But that's really where it stems from, of how can you make this better for other people? How can you, what's a process that can be improved upon? However, I also feel it's important to recognize when people do things well. So just if you have really good service at a restaurant, writing them saying, hey, you should know that your waiter did an exceptional job. It's this name, and this is why they were great. I feel you can't just complain about things. You also have to recognize, when people go above and beyond, and try to, extend things forward when you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just people in general, including myself, don't do that enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, right? You know, you think about like a challenging experience and sharing your opinion, but also all the times that things are really amazing, that people are just like exceptional at their occupation, that they should be, you know, recognized for that.
But that letter, so this letter you wrote to Disney mustn't have just been complaining. I have a feeling it was couched in constructive criticism and some praise, perhaps?
You know, yes, it was quite lengthy. It was not just like a short paragraph of like, get something better than buses. But yeah, no, I think it's good just to be able to share constructive feedback if it's something that's going to be helpful to the situation. And surprisingly, things tend to change for the better, it seems like. But also, I feel like I'm inherently lucky at winning or like getting weird things. Like one time I won like second place at this Frito Lay contest. First place was like a trip to Hawaii. Second place was like a year-long supply of potato chips and like a beach bag. And so I won the year-long supply of potato chips from Frito Lay. But
what was the contest? What did you have to do?
well, you know, there's just all kinds of weird things that come up, right? So you just like enter because your cereal box has something, and you're like, oh, great, I can win a year supply of potato chips. And then I'm always like, well, clearly I'm going to win this because I'm inherently lucky, and it usually happens.
But not lucky enough
it's
for
not,
Hawaii.
not always, but I mean, oftentimes so, but not in that particular instance.
Have you won other contests like that?
Yeah, I won an Oreo stacking contest when I was in like the third grade.
What does that mean?
Well,
Tell me
I
more about
stacked
that.
Oreos up to make a tower, and I feel like I should put this on like job applications.
Yeah,
Like,
you have quite the resume
these incredible accomplishments that I have been able to obtain by like the third grade of stacking Oreos in a tower.
So
and
the contest was to stack as many as possible
Yes.
without it tipping.
Yes, that's correct.
What was the prize?
I got a T-shirt. You know, a very exciting T-shirt, and that's probably about it. But
Did you get to eat the Oreos?
you know, I should have. I think I kept them there. But no, the more interesting one was when I was like 6, we went to my parents signed us up to be a part of this, and we were selected. They had chosen kids from across the country to be a part of this thing called Building a New World, and it's for Earth Day, and it was held on the National Mall in DC. And all these kids from everywhere came together, and you'd like construct this giant globe from these little triangle pieces. And so we got together with folks like across Bismarck, and who were very good at like engineering and all these cool things. And they were talking to, you know, a 6 and a 10-year-old, which I'm sure they're thrilled to talk to about. But then we went to DC, and we're putting this like giant globe together. And then after it, we were flying back, and there's this man sitting next to me and my mom in our row reading the Washington Post. My mom looks over like as like the flight attendant's like handing coffee to her, and she's like, that's you. So like my photo is in the Washington Post, but they got my name wrong. They got my sister's name, but it was my photo of like me putting this like tile in this giant Earth thing for Earth Day for Building a New World in DC. And so my mom was like, can we have that paper when you're done? So we have this random copy of the Washington Post with my head.
That's awesome that she spotted that. You otherwise wouldn't have known, right? There were no Google alerts at that time.
Absolutely no, not at all. No, it was just that this man happened to be reading the Washington Post next to us.
What a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Interesting times.
So did you say you had to be interviewed to win that contest?
Not interviewed, no.
Oh.
They had to submit something about like why you want to be a part of it or something.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
we were homeschooled, and they thought that was very interesting.
Oh, you were?
And so, yes,
All 4
absolutely.
kids?
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Through all grades?
Yes, absolutely. So I did take a chemistry class at the alternative high school where my mom also taught health careers because it's challenging to do like titration labs at home. And I was always in Science Olympiad. I always loved doing Science Olympiad and like competing. One time, or a couple times, we went to nationals. So we represented the state and went on in whatever area you're competing in to represent North Dakota at the National Science Olympiad competition. So that was always fun.
How was it to participate in that as a kid that wasn't at school every day with the other kids? Or maybe there were other homeschool kids?
Yeah. So it was a whole group of homeschool kids. So we got together with different folks who were homeschooled across the community, and it was basically like it was a small group of people. It wasn't as large as is now, which is great. It's grown so much, but it was pretty much like if you show up, you can be on the team. Please come. And then we just like, it's funny because at nationals you get there and like kids would be like, oh, my dad works for NASA and we've been prepping this for like the past 4 months and past year. And we're like, I went to the library and I got a book about astronomy and I read it, and that's it. But it was a great experience, and I always enjoyed science. So interesting that I did not go into a science occupation.
Yeah, so I have more questions about being homeschooled, but I also am curious about how you got into the degrees you earned and then the career you're in.
Yeah. So initially, I thought I wanted to go into be a pediatric dentist. I always enjoyed working with kids, especially kids who are lower income and didn't get the same opportunities that everyone does growing up. So I thought I'd be a pediatric dentist, but that is an expensive field of occupation to go into. And my sister went to get her degree in graphic design and communications at BSC. They have a fabulous program there. And so she was getting work at all different kinds of places like the Heritage Center and a lot of different freelance projects. And my parents were saying, well, this would be a nice way that you could, just get a 2-year degree and then you could, work your way through college of being able to have this degree in graphic design. And so I went and got the same degree as my sister, and I really enjoyed that area of communication. So then I went on and got another degree in like communication from BSC, and then I got a third one in marketing through DSU on BSC's campus. So it was a lot of credits for 4 years, but it was nice to get the 3 degrees. I moved into the communication realm, so something totally different than what I thought I would be going into. But really enjoy being able to make things not only read well, where people can find it engaging and interesting, but also look at the design aspect of something that can be visually appealing and not terribly busy.
What was your first real job out of college?
Yeah, I worked when I was still a freshman. I got a job at Clearwater Communications doing graphic design as their intern, and they were wonderful people. They are wonderful people, just a great group of folks. Really enjoyed working there. But then there was an opportunity to interview with Basin as a communications intern doing graphic design. And I remember so vividly going in. And there's like all these kids who I knew were applying, and like this girl was coming out before and she looked like she just aced it. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way. But thankfully I got that job. So that was a great experience and really good people there as well. So I appreciate just the wonderful designers and communicators I got to learn from. And it's just interesting where your path, leads you in life. And just a blessing to have such good instructors along the way.
So I have maybe this is a misperception, but the perception of many kids who are homeschooled that they finish earlier than they typically would. Was that the experience you had?
So I graduated at the normal time. I was always about 3 grades ahead in science because I really enjoyed science. But other areas, I never loved math. I was always very average with my mathematic abilities. But I did appreciate that you could move at your own pace. And so if something was, really easy for you, you could continue on and not, be at the same place where you need to be to advance. Right. But I know a lot of folks too. I know a lot of homeschoolers who have graduated early, and I think it's whatever works best for that person, and wherever they are is just a good opportunity.
So where are you getting your science fix now? Are you did you see the 5 planets lined up last week, and are you into that stuff?
Man, I tell you what, honestly, seriously, I always liked the chemistry events. That was one of my favorite. But then also I was always in the astronomy one. So I have a special place in my heart for the astronomy events for sure. My brother has this giant 5-foot Dobsonian telescope. So we'll take it out with friends, and then he's very good at knowing all the planetary pieces and the different constellations, and so he'll point them out, and he's better than I ever was. So he's good at pointing those things out, and it's interesting to learn about them and just have fun with your friends, and honestly just doing something outside and enjoying the great outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. What's your favorite thing in the summer? You mentioned kayaking.
Oh,
what else do you guys do?
Man, going camping just like we have a tent and we'll go to some of the different state parks. I mean, national parks are great and everyone obviously loves them, but I think state parks are so often overlooked because they don't have that like national park symbol on them. Doesn't mean they're not amazing. So we'll go hiking and biking. I'm more of like a paved trail biker. I'm not like a crazy cool mountain bike person, but I do enjoy biking. And honestly, just all the outdoor things. So yeah, being outside and going camping and finding different trails and exploring, I think is such a fun thing, especially when it's in North Dakota and just in the beautiful parks that we have here.
Do you have a favorite park or trail? Anything that comes to mind?
Little Missouri, I think, is such a beautiful area. I think there's just so many. Fort Lincoln is so close to us, so it's nice that you can, get in the car and half an hour later be in the park. And so I think there's so many beautiful places to go explore and go learn about and go, just see what there's to offer. I think Sakakawea is just fun to go there for the day and sit on the dock and get a pizza and ice cream and, see like these massive yachts pulling up, like all these people who have yachts. Who are you? I want to go on your yacht. Please invite me. But yeah, honestly, just kind of doing those things I think is so fun. And depending on the activity, the park would probably change.
Yachts in North Dakota sounds funny, right?
Yes, it's so true. But I feel like there is so much to do here, but it's good to, I've been trying to like focus on this whole like concept of hygge of, the Scandinavian countries, of being able to enjoy the outside and go do snowshoeing and skiing and like take advantage of the cold and the dark and, bring headlamps and like just go get outside and get moving, and like light candles and make things cozy. And I think there's so many good points behind that of like baking and getting together with your friends, and things can get so busy, I think, in everyday life where people, like, everyone's busy, like we talked about. So just being able to slow down and enjoy the little things and appreciate every season. And I think that the Lord puts those things there for a reason. It's good to get to just enjoy them. And I think you can learn and grow through those seasons, even if they're not your favorite.
Winter is an opportunity, in my opinion, to slow down, which I do like. Like you talked about being busy. It's just a different pace.
Right? Absolutely. Like when it's dark at 5 o'clock, no one's like, yeah, let's go meet for drinks at 8:30. Like, no, don't invite me out. Absolutely not. It's cold outside and it's very dark and I don't want to go outside. But yeah, suddenly like in July, you're like, yes, oh my goodness, let's get chicken strips and go to the river. Then I want to get slushy. And then, yeah, I completely agree with you 100%. It's so true.
Yeah. Where has been your favorite place that you've visited?
I really like London because it's so easy to get around. I feel like, you speak the language and the currency is quite similar and the subway system's clean and really easy to understand. And then everything's so close together that's so easy to like pop around and see different pieces of the city. So honestly, I think London's my favorite. And the history, they're so rich. You go and you're like, your street's older than my country, just these beautiful, like, incredible museums there. So I really appreciate that.
That's good. When did you go there?
Well, I've been in London 3 different times, but when I was a kid, my dad took my sister and I, so I was 10, and he took us to go explore England and just kind of learn more about history and with our family's lineage and kind of that area.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun going there because it's interesting when you're like surrounded by like other people who, like your lineage is there. Like you're going through museums and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like our great uncle or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and just to see your name in the phone book, a whole bunch of people with the name, and then like you said, it's just uncommon around here.
Yeah, and that's pronounced totally different.
Yeah, tell me again how they say it.
DL, so like the letter D, the letter L.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the American pronunciation's Dalzell.
Interesting.
So
let's go back to Scotland. You said Dalzell is Scottish.
Yes, yeah. So my dad's side is Scottish, and so my sister and I went there a few years ago and got to explore Scotland. And when we first went to Europe as kids, we got to go to this tartan shop and then see like our plaid that is made for our last name, which is like this fun, like red, green, beautiful woven pattern. And it's just interesting that all these different last names have different weaves in them and they relate to your last name. So they'll be like family crest and they'll have your tartan and it's just this kind of different thing than what you typically get to see in the US. So it was interesting.
So when you go in the store where the plaid is sold, is it labeled with your last name?
Yeah, so they have a whole like catalog and they'll have like the super like the McDonald's and like the super like it's kind of like the Smiths, in the UK of the last names are really prevalent and they have all their tartans and like different bolts of fabric. But then you get like this catalog with little like swatches of your tartan and you can flip through and find your name and then they'll make like hats and ties and coats and whatever you want from it.
Do you have any clothing made out of your tartan?
I do not. I was 10, and so I really wanted a beret. I wanted to go to Paris and do that, but the IRA was threatening to blow up the channel at the time we were there. So we didn't get to go to Paris, and so I bought a plaid hat, and it was already made, so I just bought that, and then my dad got a tie with the Dalzell tartan, which he wore to my wedding, so that was fun.
Awesome. I wonder if there is a designated maker of tartan, or how do they keep track of whose plaid is whose?
Right, because it's so ancient, and like the family crest, and then we have there's a saying, like our family saying is "I dare." Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you have a family saying?
Well, there's like a slogan that like accompanies your last name. So you get a family crest and you get a tartan, a plaid, and then you have a slogan that accompanies it. So you get like these three things. I don't know who came up with this. I should find this out because I should know this, but
I wonder how old that is.
Oh, really old. Yeah, absolutely. This is not something from like 1994. This is like goes way back when.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of fun.
So does the word Dalzell mean anything? Is that a thing over there, or do they stop with the plaid and the slogan?
Yeah, you just have your family. You can read about like your family lineage and the folks who fought in these like grand battles and the different things they accomplished and their leadership potential. And yeah, the Royal Scots Greys is who our ancestors led, and they were lowlanders. And so we went to one of the beautiful castles over there, and they had like a whole plaque to him. And we're like, this is cool. It's like our great whomever. So it's just interesting, reading about them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I saw on the internet recently that, as it was just a little random fun fact about you, that you happen to have done some luggage modeling in Paris. So I'm curious how that came about.
Okay, so my sister moved to Chicago, and she was working at a luggage company, this international luggage company. And we both have the same degrees. We both have degrees in design and communication and marketing. And they needed I need to reiterate, they needed a really normal looking person. And so I was flying in to go see my sister for like a weekend, and so I was flying to Chicago, and my sister's like, oh, I'll just shoot my sister. I'll just meet her at the airport, and we'll grab some like test shots, and we can do whatever. So I land, and I like put on her coat and like have her phone, and she gives me a couple different other travel-on bags, and I went down this like escalator like 19 times. Security eventually came over, and they're like, what are you doing? But so kept on going down this escalator to get these shots, and she took them back to her communication group and was like, oh, I think we should do this for whatever product line they're working on. And then they were talking, they had this new product line that was like for anti-theft features, and they wanted to spotlight it in a place where theft was more prevalent for tourists. And so that's how Paris came up. And they had all these test shots, and so she had to like present them to, the management team of the company, and pitch this whole idea of the place of where theft is more prevalent. And so then I found out that we get to go to Paris and then go do these shoot here with my sister. So we get to fly there, and it just was so fun traveling with my sister because she's just so fun to travel with, and I just really appreciate her. So yeah, we got to Paris and brought these bags like everywhere. We were there for about a week, and then would you whip them out at whatever, like the tower, and these beautiful like bridges and Notre Dame and like touristy areas. And it was so unique. And what's funny is while we were there, we were right outside the Louvre, and this woman came up to us, and we didn't read about like all the scams that are prevalent in France. Like I knew about like the high level ones, but we didn't like read in depth. Have you heard of the Paris gold ring scam? Mm-mm. Nor had I. So this woman, we have these bags, these anti-theft bags. And this woman comes up to us and she's like, you see this ring? She's like, you dropped this. And we're like, we didn't drop that. And she was like, no, it's good luck. You keep it. And then we read later that like people come up from behind and try to steal from you. But we were fine because we had our anti-theft bag. So everything was like all secured and locked down. And there's like little like, locks that like I attach it. But yeah. Really
so while she was talking to you,
yeah, someone would like come up behind and yes, like one of the European.
So not only were you
scams.
shooting photos for the catalog, but you were also like
trying
a case
them out.
study.
Yeah, being able to say yes, indeed, the products do work
Wow.
as intended.
That's tricky.
Yeah, very interesting.
So was it just you and your sisters?
It was, yeah. So we went to a bunch of fun stuff in the evening. Like we went to the Paris Opera House, which is one inspired Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. So just like this ornate, it's like the bell only like times 700. It's just like this gilded, we had like this box with a key that they had unlocked and like velvet line ledges for one's opera classes, clearly, when you bring them with.
Sure.
And so I was very excited. I was very excited to go to an opera. I was like, oh, this will be amazing, the grandeur. And we get in there and they're like, we're sitting through this like whole thing. It's like an interpretive dance. And it's very good, but it's just like, where's the singing? Like, I was very confused. And then at an intermission, we realized that we did not, in fact, get tickets to an opera. Instead, we're like some interpretive dance thing that apparently was happening in France while we were there.
Whoops.
Yeah. So I still need to see an opera. That's on my list.
Tell me about the frog guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were at this train station shooting, and it's like, very empty, very abandoned. There's like no one there. And so it's like me and this backpack and my sister shooting, the pictures. And there was this man with like this like frog hat with like giant Google eyes. And he kept on like sticking his head out from behind like podiums, but he would stay like 50 feet away. So you just randomly like in the background of these shots have like this frog head appear, and my sister would be like, the frog man's back, we need to wait until he leaves. And so we'd like turn around and like go somewhere else. But it was just very funny because you'd turn around and you'd have like these giant Google eyes just staring from behind a podium looking at you. Very special.
Did your photo shoots attract attention, or was there's so many tourists around it maybe wasn't noticeable?
I think it's because of the number of tourists everywhere, and there's always weird things happening. It's not like we had like a 50-person crew where like you would descend with, everybody. So I really think it was just like there's so many people everywhere that you really didn't have a whole lot of attention. What's interesting? The place that I got the most attention was, we were on vacation once in Belgium, and there would be groups of folks from different Asian countries who would want to get my photo. I have absolutely no idea why.
Just of you, not with you?
Well, no, like posing like with me. And I don't know why. I think I may have been like mistaken for someone.
Interesting.
Because clearly no one knows who I am.
Well, you are a normal-looking person.
I'm very normal. Yes.
Interesting. Did they ask for autographs?
No, but they kept on like posing behind, and I thought they wanted me to take their photos. So I kept on like, oh, I'll take your camera for you and take your photo. And I was so confused for like 5 minutes. Then I realized that they're standing behind me.
So your family has traveled a lot.
Yeah. Thankful for the opportunity. My dad worked for an airlines, and so.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm, yes. We got to do a lot of different trips and experience a lot of different cultures and try to just learn and appreciate the things that you can, just experience when being in a different place, and just always have appreciated that.
Is it just you and your sister, or do you have more siblings?
Yeah, I have two brothers. So my sister lives in Chicago, and then I have my two brothers who live here, and my parents are here as well. So yeah.
Where are you in the lineup?
Second oldest.
Okay.
So yes, my sister and I have always been really close, and so it's a bummer she lives in Chicago, but it's a cool place to visit.
Good excuse to go see her.
Absolutely.
What have we not talked about that was on your resume? Anything you had thought of before coming in, or anything that we've missed?
Oh boy, I'm sure, we could think about all kinds of random travel adventure.
You got one?
So
Random
one
travel
time, I was telling you about Belgium and how like people would like take my photo because Lord knows why. And we ended up, so my family's always like, oh, let's like book a place to stay that's not like your typical like Holiday Inn Express. Like, let's stay in like an authentic place. So we're staying on like, I don't know, the 5th level of this like apartment that you have to walk up this huge spiral staircase to get to. And we're like in this big apartment. And we realized afterwards, like after we were like in there, that it was a really interesting place because of the folks that would come there in the evening and go to different establishments. Belgium was just such an interesting place. Like going to Brussels there was just, cops everywhere, and like they guarded the grass where like you can't walk on the grass. And then later on we got back to the US. And we had some instances of this lady like knocking on our door and saying, "Let me in." And there was like no phone, and there's like no people on the door. It's just like this giant door on the 5th floor of this apartment in the middle of this massive city. And my dad was like, who is it? And the lady responds with, "It's me." Who is me? So we just had a lot of things like that happen, but then we got back, and then we realized that we stayed in the Molenbeek district, which is like the terrorist hotbed of the world, like of the entire world. Back like a few years ago, and there's all these like terrible atrocities happening in the world. They locked down the whole Molenbeek district where we stayed for like a week or 2 weeks and didn't let like anyone leave their building because it was so ridden with crime and terrible things happening. And so it was like my family was the only people there when we'd walk back to our apartment who looked like us. Like everyone was very, just different backgrounds. And it was very interesting because we really stood out.
Interesting. Was there a vibe there? Did you feel uncomfortable or scared while you were
not frightened. It's nice because we were close. The reason why I booked it, we were close to like the Grand Place where they have like this beautiful like carpet of flowers they set up in the spring. And it's like this gorgeous European city and like just like this beautiful area. And so, we just like go get like chocolate and waffles and things. But then when you'd walk back, you realize very quickly, like if you walked in like one block in one direction, it was grocery stores and shops that were specifically, geared to folks who, didn't have the same background as me and my family. And so we did definitely know that. And folks would be walking in the evening with like their, robes on and different, pieces of whatever they're wearing. And it was just different, and it's always good to learn from different cultures, but it was very interesting. We had no idea that we inadvertently stayed in the terrorist hotbed of the world.
How would a person even find that out ahead of time? I suppose you could have Googled the district.
Yeah, I suppose we should have, but it was just like, well, this is a nice apartment. It's centrally located. And
good price for some reason.
I mean, it probably was, but it was this nice big apartment. And
I'm glad you made it back.
Yeah, thank you. We were too. I'm glad it worked out.
So tell me about your Mercy Box project.
Yeah. So I started, one of my good friends, Olivia, had this awesome idea. I was working as communications director for the Homeless Coalition, and she said, "Oh, I saw this idea online. I think it'd be so cool to do this." Was like probably 7 years ago. But it's this idea of getting folks together and donating different items for people experiencing homelessness and putting them together in Ziploc bags. And then whenever you encounter someone who's experiencing homelessness, you can give them this bag. And not only does it have tangible resources in it of, things that someone might need, like granola bars and socks and hygiene products, but also had a list of places you could go for assistance in the community and like the bus routes and things like that. So anyways, I asked my boss if I could run with this, and he was good with it. And so I went to a local church and asked if we could use their space, because we didn't have space for the multitude of items. And then started up the collection drive, and we ended up with like thousands of pounds of donated items from these fabulous people across the community who just put the items in this big red tote that I just called the Mercy Box, and came up with like the branding of it, because my degree is in design, and so I like doing that stuff. And so people would drop off like all kinds of things in this box of, hygiene products and like prepackaged snack items and all these things. And then we collect the boxes and take them to this centralized location. And then Kmart was gracious enough to lend us their shopping carts. And so we sorted them. We had all these volunteers who helped sort through all these boxes. We had like hundreds of volunteers show up. And they sort through all these boxes of donated items and then put them in a cart. And then we had this fabulous response from the community of all these volunteers coming. You'd grab a gallon-sized Ziploc bag and pick up like one toothbrush, one pair of socks, one whatever. And then at the end, we had all these bags, and we asked folks to take them with them and keep them in their trunk. And if they, encountered someone who's experiencing homelessness, you could just give it to them and hopefully provide a good resource. So yeah, it was fun. I'm glad it worked out, and it just my friend's idea who came up with it. And so it was awesome to see the response from the community in such a positive way.
Is it still going on?
Yeah, it sure is. So it's really evolved. So I've stepped away from doing work with it, but there's a group in town who is continuing it on and working with different nonprofits of being able to collect items and give it to them. So it's kind of morphed from just being for folks experiencing homelessness into collecting items just for different nonprofits in the communities across our state. So
wow.
Yeah, it's cool to see it, continuing to grow and reach people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what kind of feedback you've gotten, or at the time that you were working with that group, or since, if you've heard just what kind of impact that has had, or any kind of experiences people have had in giving those bags out?
Yeah. I mean, it was just neat to see the community response of, we had the gym at Shiloh full of people, and we had folks like Senator Hovind and his wife and Miss North Dakota and, notable people in the community coming to show their support. And so that was really neat just to see, folks taking the time out of their day to come there and volunteer and spend that time not only creating bags, but taking them with them. And yeah, afterwards it's cool to hear stories about people, just personally, I know when you give them out, how much people appreciated getting things like that I take for granted, like clean socks and, food right away, and just a nice way of being able to provide support right away, and especially that list of resources where folks could go if they were, looking for different things that they needed.
As you're talking about this, I'm thinking about when I see people outside and I wonder what their situation is, that I would almost be worried that I would offend them handing something like that to them. What is your experience with that, or what would your advice be? Yeah,
I think that's a great point of, one, a lot of times, we see what's in our own circle, and so if I think about my circle of friends and, you don't see homelessness in that aspect, so you think, oh, it's not a huge problem, but you look at, the amount of kids who are living in poverty especially is just absolutely heartbreaking. Just people who can't afford just having a meal every day it's a huge number. So it's so great that there's resources like the banquet. I taught art classes there for about 7 years to the kids.
Cool.
It was so cool getting to know the kids. And one thing I learned from my time there, I was there every Thursday and would do a craft with the kids. One thing I learned from that was a lot of times the parents would be excited to do the craft with their kid. And so I'd come in with scratch board or just something little, nothing elaborate, but just little crafts they could do. And the parents were excited about them. And I learned from that a lot of times we like to look at a situation as a community as a whole and pass judgment of oh, that person should be working. I don't want to give a handout. then typically they're working multiple jobs and trying to make ends meet, but sometimes they just need a little bit of assistance. And so as far as your question regarding, you don't want to be offensive towards anyone, absolutely, and I completely agree with you. It's so important to have the utmost, courtesy and respect for all people, but also just recognizing that if you encounter someone who appears to be experiencing homelessness, most likely they are, and not just standing there for whatever reason. And if someone wants to decline it, they certainly can. But I try to remind myself it's our job to have grace and not to judge and just to care for people. And the judgment can be left to someone else of a higher power.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess when I get in situations like that, I often tell myself, if I'm trying to decide if I should do it or not, do the nice thing. So the nice thing is to offer. And like you said, they can decline if they wish, but it might be a big deal to somebody.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind, honestly, is, the safety aspect, like we talked about at the Blessing Bake Assembly of, be mindful of your situation and, who's around you. Don't put yourself in a situation where you might be in any type of danger. So I think a lot of times it is just, honestly, I'll just give to the Salvation Army or groups that work closely within the community, like Carrie's Kids is absolutely fantastic. What Carrie Gross does for kids in the community who, just need some assistance. And so I feel like it's so good to give to those organizations, and knowing that they can give it to the folks who are in need is so important. And then you're, able to make just wise decisions as well for your own safety.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a really good point. So you have a lot on your schedule, it seems like. What's your, how are you prioritizing your free time? What are you doing in your free time, too, also, these days?
Right. It's always so interesting. I feel like when people ask, what you have going on, everyone always says, oh, I'm busy. But, no one ever says, oh, I'm doing well, I'm prioritizing my time effectively, and I'm, no one ever said, everybody's busy.
It's just a generic.
It is. So I just feel like everyone has stuff going on. I feel just thankful to be in the community that we live in. I feel like there's a lot of cool things to go do in the winter. My husband and I will take our dog and we'll go cross-country skiing or snowshoeing now with the 1,400 feet of snow that we have. So we'll do that. Really enjoy, honestly, just traveling when we have the opportunity to get to learn more about different people and cultures and places. I think there's so much you can learn from traveling. So I really enjoy having opportunities to go do that. I really love my job. It's great working with the folks at the auditor's office. They're just a wonderful group of people. Honestly, they're just so genuine. They say what they mean and they mean what they say. So I'm speaking at a conference for all of the state elected auditors on the East Coast in June. So coming up with some content for that to share about the importance in communication in different audit shops across the country. So that will be fun. Looking forward to that. And your typical grilling outside with family and friends. It's just nice to be able to do things outside and enjoying North Dakota and being able to, when it warms up, go kayaking again. I'm excited for that and doing more summer activities.